StudyIQ IAS. अब तैयारी हुई affordable.
Hello and a very warm welcome to my dearest students in today's class. The daily current affairs are a boon when it comes to understanding the preliminary examination. Not only you will receive a lot of knowledge, conceptual clarity, but also how to deal with the prelims examination, which is now becoming more skill-based rather than just knowing everything. Now, the main purpose of this particular class is not to give you the exact knowledge that you are seeing on the board, but understanding how to apply that knowledge in the form of questions. The kind of questions that could come, the kind of tricks that UPSC might follow, psychological as well as distorting the knowledge sort of. And I provide you the PDF regularly on my Telegram channel, so please do not make notes. Try to be understanding when it comes to understanding how we deal with the questions. Other than that, everything else is a value addition. All right. Also, I provide answer writing practices on my Telegram channel, provide assignments on a daily basis. If you want to get guidance with respect to answer writing, you can be a part of my Telegram channel from that perspective as well. If you have any questions regarding the examination or doubts, you can talk to me directly on my Instagram channel. The Telegram channel is by the name of Pooja Dwivedi UPSC and Instagram channel Pooja Dwivedi StudyIQ UPSC. Okay. Now, these are the various events that we have to cover today. So, first of all, let's talk about Manrega. And how is it different from Manregs? We are going to discuss that as well because very few people know the difference between Manrega and Manregs. So, we will concentrate on both the things, try to understand it. See, before I begin with the class, I would like to tell you that on 31st of July, we are closing our P2I batches. These will be available in Hindi, English and English, started from 22nd of July. Mains residential program is the biggest point here. That means if any student qualifies Prelims 2024 and they are a student of any of the batches, Hindi, English or English, they will be called to the StudyIQ campus to study for the mains examination for a 4-month period free of any sort of additional charges. The fees overall is 70,000, but if you use the code PDLive, you will get it for 29,999. All right. So consider the following statements with respect to Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. What do you mean by an act? Act is of course a legislation. So whenever any act is legislated, it has certain conditions, certain features. So these are the features that have been given under the act. That is why we have to understand it from the features of the act perspective. It provides a legal guarantee. The key word here is legal. That means if work is not provided, you can approach the court. It provides a legal guarantee for 100 days of employment in every financial year. Roughly 1/3 of the stipulated workforce must be women. Social audit of Manrega works is mandatory. Now what do we have to see? We have to see how many of the statements given above is or are not correct. See, first statement is saying that Manrega ensures that every person who is supposed to be eligible under this is getting a legal guarantee of 100 days of employment in each financial year. Prelims can also ask you questions like, it provides a legal guarantee of 150 days of employment. So here you will have to ensure that you know the concept clarity as well as the factual knowledge is clear. So whenever there is an act, right, of course, that act is supposed to be imposed on the states to do certain work. That is why from that concept you can build, yes, legal guarantee is there. But what about not getting any job? Then you will get monetary aid in order to you can say compensate for the lack of work. But if both are not provided, then you can approach the court. Then it will provide it for 100 days. Also remember that this is a factual question. The second part of this statement, this first statement is factual. Of employment in every financial year. Prelims can also give you statements like in quarterly basis. 100 days of employment in 4 months. No, yearly in each financial year. Then roughly 1/3 of the stipulated workforce should be women. That means 1/3 of the total workforce out of 100, supposedly 1/3 should be women. That is stipulated. That means it is definitely to be achieved. So second is also correct. And social audit of Mandrake's work is mandatory. Prelims can ask you, it is voluntary. If I, cross this particular word mandatory and I put voluntary, but it's not voluntary, it's mandatory. That means the ethical analysis, the moral analysis, the societal analysis of this particular act is being done in order to ensure that it is reaching the right people. So yes, it is mandatory. So that accountability can be fixed upon those who are implementing this particular policy. Okay, so first is correct, second is also correct, and third is also correct. Just understand it from the point of concept as well. Why just to put an act and make auditing not mandatory? That shouldn't be there. We have to fix particular responsibility. That is why there is mandate over here. All three are actually correct. We had to select the not correct ones, right? So none will be the correct answer. Recently, over 6 crore, 68 lakh, 42,000 Manrega job cards have been removed. That means they were fake. And it is under the Manreg or Manregs program. What is the difference between the two? We will talk about that as well. See, this is an act, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. Believe it or not, during the times of COVID crises, when migrant laborers went from urban areas to their homes in rural areas, under the Manrega only, they could achieve a lot when it comes to employment and work. So it has provided a boon when it comes to the COVID-19. And it is also known as the scheme. Now, what is the relation between the two? Act is an act. That means it's a legislation that has been passed in the parliament, passed by the parliament. But when it is implemented, this act becomes a scheme. So this is the relation between the two. There is no such difference. Whatever difference is there, I will tell you. But the implementation of the act on the state level, that is the scheme. That means act is centralized. This is centralized. And schemes are decentralized. In various states, when Manrega is implemented, it becomes a scheme. It was enacted on August 25th, 2005. It provides legal guarantee that every rural adult members of any rural household will get 100 days of employment, and this will be given to those who are willing to do public work related, unskilled, manual work, and at the statutory minimum wage. This is what you have to keep in mind. Okay, who implements it? It is the Ministry of Rural Development under the Government of India, who is responsible to do it in association with the state governments. It wants to improve the purchasing power of the rural people, also provide semi or unskilled work to people. And the keyword here is primarily. That means on a secondary level, it can also provide skilled labor, unskilled as well as skilled, but primarily semi-skilled and unskilled. Primarily means first, secondarily means second. Primarily means preferable, secondary means if left out or if need be. And it wants to, give this employment to people who are living below the poverty line, to bridge the gap between the rich and poor in the country. And roughly 1/3 of the stipulated workforce must be women. Okay, and here is the difference between the two. And I've already told you that an act is an act, and scheme is when that act is being implemented. The central government has specified the features and conditions that are necessary in the act, and the state government have to incorporate all the features that are given in the act according to their own needs and preferences, but the overall structure should not be damaged. The central government has powers to make rules and amend Manrega. When it comes to Manregs, that is the scheme implementation, then the state government have the powers to make rules and amend the Manregs. Okay, the scheme can be made flexible, but the act has to be remain centralized. Okay, Manrega has been notified through the Gazette of India, but schemes, that means Manregs, is notified by the state government in their own official gazette. That means official gazette of the states. All right, and it was notified on 7th September 2005. But if we talk about Manregs, it can be notified yearly as and when needed, all right, by the states. With respect to the no confidence motion or the motion of no confidence, consider the following statements. A no confidence motion can be moved by any member of the House. A minimum of 25 members have to accept the motion, and it can be moved in Lok Sabha as well as the Rajya Sabha. So how many statements given above is or are correct? This is both a concept and a fact question. How? Concept is that whenever we have a parliamentary democracy, what do? We make it responsible to the parliament. We make the executive responsible to the parliament. That is correct. This is my conceptual clarity. And whenever the parliament, specifically the Lok Sabha, the Council of Ministers, they are answerable and accountable to the Lok Sabha and parliament as a whole, but Lok Sabha in the specificity. So whenever that is happening, Lok Sabha has all the powers to move a motion of no confidence. But that is not the case with Rajya Sabha. Rajya Sabha cannot move the no confidence motion. It can only be moved in the Lok Sabha. Third is incorrect because here it is written as well as Rajya Sabha. No. A no confidence motion can be moved by any member of the house. That means it doesn't mean that only a minister can move it. Of course, a minister, how can they move it? When they are a minister, of course, they will be in the government. So, any member, even private members, can move this motion against the ruling government. And it will be accepted only when 50 members are supporting it. See, when a no confidence motion is moved, it is like a way of saying that the government now is not in concurrence with the policies of the people. That means the government has lost faith. We have lost faith over the government. This is what the Lok Sabha wants to say. And who is Lok Sabha to say it? See, we all are a part of a representative democracy. Such a huge and diverse country cannot be a part of the direct democracy. We cannot meet on a regular basis and decide if the government has lost faith or not, right? So we elect our representatives. We have a representative democracy. So what do? We rely on the Lok Sabha to please put a curb on those policies which are not in favor of the general public. And this is where everything stems out. The no confidence motion is there to ensure that the government is still true to the people. Alright, so a no confidence motion can be moved by any member of the house. This is definitely correct. And of course, a minimum of 50 members need to support it. So first is correct, second is not correct, third is not correct. One only will be the correct answer. Let me recheck. Yes, correct, incorrect, incorrect. Okay, so one only will be the correct answer. See, whenever a government has to rule, it has to ensure that it has the faith of all the members of the parliament. And when the Lok Sabha decides that no, the government is now not actually in concurrence with the representation of the people, it decides to show its disapproval towards the government. And this is done through the motion of no confidence. So, if any member of the house feels that the government in power does not have a majority, does not represent the wish of the people, they can move this motion. And the party in power has to prove the majority in the house. If the party that is ruling collapses because of this no confidence motion, then the caretaker government will be there. It could be the same government that is right now ruling. It could be a transitional government until and unless an election takes place to formulate the actual government. Okay. The member need not give any reason for moving the no confidence motion. There should not be any sort of reason. But that brings us to the difference between a censure and a no confidence motion. Let's talk about these two. See, censure motion, when it is moved, it should hold a reason. Why are you moving this censure motion? Then, no confident does not need to state any reason. As a motion itself is self-explanatory that I am being moved because the majority of the parliament doesn't feel that the government has majority anymore. That means maybe it has lost the faith of the people. It can be moved against an individual minister, the censure motion. But the no confidence motion has to be moved against the entire council of ministers. Then it is moved for censuring the council when it comes to a single policy. If I'm not happy with any sort of policy of the government, against that policy I can move a censure motion. but the no confidence motion is moved against the government as a whole. That means any policy that the government is bringing, I am not feeling it. Then, if it is passed in the Lok Sabha, the Council of Ministers need not resign. What? Censure motion. But if a no confidence motion is passed, then the government must resign. Alright, so this is all about the no confidence motion, because the opposition has moved this motion today, and that is why it is important for us to know. It can be moved by any member of the House only in the Lok Sabha. Rule 198 of the Rules of Procedure and Conduct of the Lok Sabha specifies the procedure. If it gets asked in your prelims examination that it stems from the Constitution, no. It is in the Rules of Procedure and Conduct in the Lok Sabha. The member has to give a written notice before 10 a.m. and if it is accepted, of course, a minimum number of 50 members have to accept it, and then of course before 10 a.m. it has to put before the parliament. Okay, the speaker then will announce the date for the discussion of the motion. Allotted date has to be within 10 days of the motion being moved, and if the motion fails and if the motion fails because of that, because this wasn't discussed within 10 days, then what will happen? The motion will collapse and the member who has moved it, they will be informed. This is the motion of no confidence, a very strong tool. Moving on, the Madhav Gadgil committee report is related to universal health coverage, Western Ghats, privatization of banks, or share market. The correct answer will be, just think about it, because Madhav Gadgil committee report has been in the news since 1 decade. Why? Because it is related to the ecologically sensitive Western Ghats, and it was never accepted by the government. The importance right now is rooted from the Raigad incident, because Raigad is actually situated in a very ecologically sensitive zone in Maharashtra in the Western Ghats only. Western Ghats expand through 6 states. If we go from north to south, first it starts from Gujarat, the southern region of Gujarat, then it comes through Goa, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu and Kerala. This is the expanse. But mountainous region, they are from Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu and Kerala. Important peaks are there. It is divided into Sahyadris, Nilgiris and the Anaimudi peak, which is at the border of Tamil Nadu and Kerala. The Anaimudi peak, let me write it down. Anaimudi peak. It is the highest elevated point of the Western Ghats. It is one of the 8 biological hotspots, biodiversity hotspots, beg your pardon, biodiversity hotspots of the world. One of the 8. It has so many endangered, vulnerable, nearly threatened species, both flora and fauna. Some say, and theories suggest, that it was formed during the chaotic period when Gondwana was divided. And during that period of time, 150 million years ago, the erosion and faulting of the Deccan Trap started to take place. And for this very reason, it is also known as the Great Escarpment. The Great Escarpment. So this region, this Western Ghats, they are even older than Himalayas. They are ecologically sensitive. So the Madhav Gadgil committee report suggested that please treat them so. Do not make commercial ventures in them. Do not mine in them. Do not do unregulated infrastructural development in them. This region is not stable for that very reason. That is why landslides occur so much. And I also showed you the landslide atlas of ISRO, in which Western Ghats was one of the regions where landslides are occurring a lot. Alright, so this particular committee report is also known by the name of Western Ghats Ecology Expert Panel. It was chaired by Dr. Madhav Gadgil in 2010. The then Environment Minister was Jairam Ramesh. A proper more than 500-page report was submitted to the central government in 2011, but nothing was done. It was suggested that please classify this entire region of Western Ghats, the 64% of it, not entire, the 64% of it in different ecologically sensitive zone. Ecologically sensitive zone 1, 2, and 3. And they also suggested to designate the entire region as an ecologically sensitive area. What does this make out? This tends to ensure that Western Ghats, if they become an ecologically sensitive area, the developmental works which are unsuited for that region will not take place. Regulation will take place. That is why we have situated many national parks there, so that sensitivity of that region can be ensured. National parks basically preserve flora and fauna. So it was suggested that in ecologically sensitive zone 1, almost all developmental activities such as coal mining, infrastructure development, commercial ventures, these are stopped. And also suggested that the similar projects which have completed their shelf life, they should be decommissioned. In all zones, genetically modified crops should not be allowed because that could hurt the integrity of the flora. Use of plastic bags be prohibited in the zone. Special economic zones should not be permitted because what will happen after that? They will build developmental infrastructure, and special economic zone, it actually hurts the basic idea of any region being ecologically sensitive. New hill stations should not be allowed. This was also there because we as people, what do? We go to hill stations and start littering over there. That creates an issue. All right. It also said that changing the land use from farmland to non-farmland should be there. Stoppage of diversion of rivers to protect the ecology of that region, and public lands should not be converted into private lands because if they convert it into private lands, they will be out of the reach of the government. A bottom to top approach was suggested. That means include the community who are living there. The community who lives in these regions are much more proficient and much more well equipped with the knowledge they need for conservation of any region, of the region that they are living in. So they wanted, the Gardigal committee report suggested that please, when you do not know the region, then how can you decide what is important or not important for that region? Include the communities. That is why it suggested bottom to top approach. That means first the community, then the district, then the state, then the central government, like this. All right. Now, ban should be there on growing single commercial crops such as tea and any coffee, anything that is single plantation crop. It damages the soil, it erodes the soil, it extracts all the nutrients out of the soil, and that is not healthy. It also suggested the establishment of a Western Ghats Ecology Authority, and community forest resources of the and the Forest Rights Act, they should be implemented in a community manner. Now, next question is that with respect to the Assam Rifles, I have already covered this, so please answer it correctly. Consider the following statements. It was raised after the independence as Kashar Levi. Prior to 1965, this force was under the Ministry of External Affairs, and it is the only paramilitary force which is under dual control status or dual control structure. So what do we have to see? We have to see the not correct statements. Assam Rifles was actually raised as Kashar Levi. Okay, Kashar Levi, for this specific reason, to take care of the Kashar region or region of Assam. But later, when numerous states were carved out of Assam, then what happened? Now, of course, not only Assam, but all the northeastern states can be taken care of by Assam Rifles. And the Assam Rifles was raised as Kashar Levi in the year 1835 to help the colonial government. It was renamed as Assam Rifles in the year 1917, World War I, in order to celebrate their victory, celebrate their contribution in the World War I. Prior to 1965, this force was, yes, working under the Ministry of External Affairs. Now it is under the dual control structure. The first control is with the Ministry of Home Affairs. The Ministry of Home Affairs takes care of the administrative structure. Administrative means providing infrastructure, providing salaries. But when it comes to the operations, deployment of troops, it comes under the army, and army works under the Ministry of Defense. So this is the dual control structure, and it is the only paramilitary force which is under it. There are 6 paramilitary forces, and under this we find the Assam Rifles to be the only one that is under dual control structure. So first statement is incorrect, because what is it saying? After independence it was raised as Kashar Levi. No, in 1835 it was done so. In 1917 it got renamed, and prior to 1965, as I told you, it was working under the Ministry of External Affairs, and the third statement is correct. So first is not correct, second is correct, third is also correct. So how many are not correct? One only will be the not correct. This is not correct, this and this, these two are correct. All right. So Assam Rifles is one of the 6 Central Armed Police Forces. It is under the administrative control of MHA. Other 5 include CRPF, BSF, ITPB, CISF and SSB. They want to, what they are aimed at, Assam Rifles, to maintain law and order in the northeast area. Recently only I covered this issue that Manipur government has asked the Assam Rifles to push back the 718 Myanmar nationals that have entered into Manipur during the chaos, during the entire violence of Manipur. And it guards the Indo-Myanmar border in the region as well. That is why it was asked to do so. It has a sanctioned strength of over 63,000 personnel, and there are 46 battalions apart from administrative and training staff. Assam Rifles is the oldest paramilitary force in India. Which one is? Assam Rifles. And it was raised as Kashar Levi. Then it was a semi-military force in 1835, and in the year 1917 it was renamed as Assam Rifles. It has a permanent affiliation of the battalions of the Assam Rifles to different groups of the Gorkhas, most furious warriors ever seen. Moving on. Consider the following pairs. We have to match the orbit for the purpose, for the kind of satellite it is stationed with. Polar orbit, reconnaissance. Highly elliptical orbit, remote sensing. Geosynchronous orbit, telecommunication. So, how many pairs given above is or are correctly matched? We all know that Chandrayaan is moving from one orbit to another orbit. It is having a circuitous journey. That means, let me just explain you a bit about Chandrayaan 3's trajectory. We are making the Chandrayaan 3 to have a circuitous journey. That means it is not going directly from the Earth to the Moon. Why? Because if we did that, it wouldn't have been economical. It would have taken 4 days to reach the Moon from India, from the Earth to the Moon. But what happens is that we will need a lot of fuel for that. We are indirectly going to the Moon. That means we are raising the orbit of the Chandrayaan from this to this to this. And the recent one has been done on the 25th of July only. And it uses, during this process, the gravity force as well as the timely use of thrusters. It saves a lot of fuel. And in a similar fashion, the Chandrayaan will move or descend to the south pole of the Moon orbit by orbit, not directly. Okay? We are trying to make a soft landing on the Moon. We have to ensure that each and every step of the Chandrayaan 3 is going correctly. And that is why it is so economical for India. It has costed as much as Adi Purush, the making of Adi Purush. Okay? So now let's move to the next question. Consider the following pairs. We have to match the orbit to the satellite we station at this orbit. Okay? And we have to see how many pairs is or are correct. See, there are 3 orbits given here: polar, highly elliptical, geosynchronous. To match with them are reconnaissance, remote sensing and telecommunication. See, polar, by the name of it, you can understand, it keeps an eye on the poles. Supposedly this is the Earth and these are the poles, and this is the orbit the polar satellite follows. As it keeps an eye on the poles, it becomes really easy for it to stay on that longitude. And when it stays on that longitude, it becomes easy for a country to understand the intelligence capacity of these satellites. So it collects reconnaissance. That means covering intelligence, getting intelligence, or surveying, to conduct surveys as well. Alright, so first is correct. Then highly elliptical orbit. Orbits generally are elliptical in nature. Highly means that the nearest and the most distant point of this orbit will be very large. Supposedly this is the Earth and this is the elliptical orbit. Beg your pardon, I'll draw it more perfect. This is the Earth and this is the highly elliptical orbit. Highly means the nearest and the farthest point of this elliptical orbit is a lot. So you will see that the satellite will come really close to the Earth at one point and it will also remain very far away. So what will that give us? A bird's eye view. So it will be very helpful in remote sensing. Understand what kind of things are going on remotely. A bird's eye view. Very closer, it can also provide us good picture of the Earth. So it is used for remote sensing, to keep an eye on the fields, crops, to understand the weather. So these kind of things can be done with the highly elliptical orbit. Then geosynchronous orbit, by the name itself you can understand, it tries to synchronize its movements with the Earth, geosynchronous. And geosynchronous orbits, as they try to match their rotation with the Earth's rotation, they will apparently remain fixed. As I'm standing here and I see a geosynchronous orbit, it will, as it is matching the rotation, it will seem to me that it is fixed in one place, be it day or night. So when it is fixed, we can understand it will help us in getting real-time information. For that, telecommunication satellites are settled in the geosynchronous orbit. Alright, so beg your pardon. One is correct, second is correct, third is also correct. All three are correct. Now, let us try to understand why have I asked this question. The Chandrayaan-3 has made its final ascent to the highest orbit of the Earth recently, that is 25th of July. 8 days ago, it was raised to the 4th orbit and now it has been risen to the final orbit. We are not going to the moon directly. Why? Because a direct descent to the moon, a direct reach to the moon will consume a lot of fuel. A direct direction journey to the moon consists of 4 days, but it will consume a lot of fuel and we have to be economical. So in order to save fuel, we are moving the Chandrayaan-3 in a circuitous fashion, in an indirect fashion, from one orbit to another, to another, to another, to another, to the final orbit. And this is with the help of, it is using the gravity, the movement with the help of gravity and the timely switching on of the fired thrusters. So when the thrusters switch on, it moves forward. First, it uses the gravity, then it moves forward. Then the thrusters close down. This is the fashion in which the Chandrayaan-3 is going. And in similar way, it will also land on the moon. It won't go like this. No, it will move softly from one orbit to another orbit to another orbit to another orbit. And that will be after almost a month. 23rd or 24th August, we are going to land on the south pole of the moon. If we do this, it will be a big achievement for India. South pole of the moon consists of a lot of fossils which are untouched. We cannot see it because of course, the matching of the movements between the Earth and the moon has caused us to not see the south pole of the moon much. So the final descent will take place approximately on 23rd or 24th of August. It is necessary that sunlight is available for the soft landing. Then only we can do it. Okay, and we will do it. A low Earth orbit is relatively close to the Earth. By the name itself, we can understand about a low Earth orbit. And it can be at an altitude of 1000 km but as low as 160 km. So it can produce good photos, high resolution photos of the Earth. The International Space Station and even the Hubble Space Telescope is situated in the low Earth orbit. It is most commonly used for satellite imaging, but not very good for telecommunication, not very useful for them. Then we have the medium Earth orbit. A wide range of orbits are here, and the navigation satellite Galileo of the European Space Agency is over here. It is a cluster of satellite that provides GPS services. Okay, moving on. Now next is transfer orbit. Transfer orbit, the geostationary transfer orbit. Transfer orbits are when we do not need to move any satellite direct to the orbit of some other planet. We will move it to the transfer orbit first. It will stay there for a period of time, temporary period of time, and then it will be transferred to the destined orbit. And in a perfectly round orbit, the satellite is always at the same distance from the Earth's surface. When it comes to highly eccentric orbit, then it will look like an ellipse, like this. Alright. And objects in the GSO, they have an orbital speed. That means they match their speed with the orbit of the Earth, and it matches the planet's rotation as well. But GEO objects only orbit the Earth equator. This is one of the reasons why they are used for telecommunication as well as Earth observation, as you can see. Alright, this is how it works, the geotransfer orbit. And of course, we have to understand orbits are necessary when it comes to placing different satellites. Okay, moving on. Polar orbit, I have already told you that they are within the reach so that they can produce good reconnaissance capability, weather tracking, measuring atmospheric condition, and long-term Earth observation as well. And the polar orbit is within 30 degrees of Earth's poles. Alright, so you can see polar orbit. This one is like this. Okay, let's move on. A highly elliptical orbit is oblong, as you can see like this, and it is good for satellite radio, remote sensing, and other applications as well. Alright, moving on. Which of the following is correct with respect to the Siachen Glacier? Today is Vijay Divas, the Kargil Vijay Divas, and that is why this question has been asked. So it lies to the south of the Shyok River, it lies to the east of Leh, it lies to the south of the Shaksgam Tract, it lies to the west of the Pangong Tso Lake. Keep all these cardinal points in mind, cardinal directions in mind, because this region is a lot in the news recently, and it has been in the news since a long period of time. That is why. See, this is the Siachen Glacier, and it is to the north of the Shyok River. This is the Shyok River. So the first is incorrect. Then it lies to the east of Leh. Here is Leh, and it is actually lying to the northwest of Leh. Okay, here is Siachen Glacier. Then here is the Shaksgam Tract. To the south of it, we have the Siachen Glacier. Shaksgam Tract. Yes, option C is correct. And then I do not at all endorse this map. This is just to show the ground reality. But in reality, in actual under conditions of the instrument of accession, this all region belongs to India. Aksai Chin is when the Chinese entered illegally into India, and they have set up their base after 1962. This is Aksai Chin. Pakistan is going on another track, of course, the POK, and it's like I am stealing an iPhone from someone and gifting it to somebody else. The Shaksgam tract has been ceded to China by Pakistan. What is this? And then this is the reality, this is the ground reality, but it is not at all an endorsement. I do not agree to this map. StudyIQ doesn't agree to this map. This is a disclaimer. Also make sure that you understand the map correctly if you have to write the answers. Okay, and then there is Siachen Glacier. I have already told you that. Pangong Tso Lake is over here, Pangong Tso, and to the northwest, from here, northwest Leh as well, and to the northwest of the Pangong Tso we have the Siachen Glacier, not just west. Okay, so be very careful when you are answering these kind of questions. West would be when it is very close to the Pangong Tso Lake, but it is northwest. So option C will be the correct answer here. Okay, then recently Rajya Sabha MP Phangnon Konyak presided over Rajya Sabha. She belongs to Manipur, Mizoram, Sikkim, Nagaland. The correct answer is Nagaland. Along with her, other women have also been a part of the panel of vice chairpersons. So S. Phangnon Konyak became the first woman member from Nagaland to preside over the Rajya Sabha. She broke another record last week when she became the first ever woman to be a part of the Rajya Sabha, to be appointed to the panel of vice chairpersons, and we see other three women are also part of it. P.T. Usha, of course. Then we have Sulata Deo, and of course Fauzia Khan. Okay, so these three women, these are also the first time parliamentarians when it comes to the Rajya Sabha. Okay, so that's all for today. I will provide you the PDF. Just remain with me for one moment. We have launched our batches for optional. If you want to take P2I and optional both, there is a combination, 42,000 only. Okay, and you will get the choice of option from PSIR, Sociology, Geography, Philosophy, History, Anthropology, PubAt, Mathematics, and Hindi Sahitya. So if you're interested, you can take the combo pack. Do use the code PDLive whenever you are doing it. And it is valid till only and only today, 26th of July. After that, we won't have a sale. If you want to take just option, it will cost you 13,999 if you use the code TDLive. Okay? So that's it. Thank you so much for watching and stay updated.
StudyIQ IAS. अब तैयारी हुई अफोर्डेबल.